Clara Reynolds had spent the entire day at the art gallery in Boston, helping set up a new exhibition, and she was exhausted. The kind of tired that seeps into your bones and makes you question whether your energy will ever come back. Still, she decided not to go straight home. She needed a quiet moment for herself, a place where the noise of the city could fade and she could simply exist. So she wandered through the streets, letting her feet guide her, till she stumbled upon a small cafe tucked between two old brick buildings. The warm light spilling from the windows, the gentle hum of conversation inside. And the smell of coffee and baked bread called to her like a quiet promise. It felt like a little sanctuary waiting just for her. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The cafe was cozy, small enough to feel intimate, but large enough that you could find a corner and be alone with your thoughts. Soft jazz music floated through the air, blending with the murmur of conversation. And she immediately felt a sense of calm she hadn't realized she needed. Clara ordered a cup of chamomile tea and chose a seat near the window. Watching the leaves fall from the trees outside, amber and gold in the streetlights. It was a scene she had walked past countless times, but tonight, it felt different. Alive, full of quiet potential. Almost as soon as she settled in, the door opened again, letting in the cool autumn air and three men who seemed to carry a presence that instantly shifted the atmosphere of the room. Clara couldn't help but notice them, though she tried to act casual. The first was tall and serious, with eyes that seemed to hold stories he didn't speak out loud. He had a calmness that was almost magnetic, as if he had seen the world in ways that most people never would. The second, charming and quick to smile, carried a warmth that made everyone around him feel instantly welcome. His laughter was infectious, and his energy seemed like sunlight spilling into the room. The third was quiet, almost reserved, but there was a depth in him that drew attention without demanding it. He watched the world with a kind of curiosity that made people feel seen, like their smallest actions mattered. Clara felt a strange pull toward them, though she didn't know why. And she caught herself wondering if she was imagining it. By chance or perhaps fate, they ended up at the same table. Clara felt a small rush of nerves as they greeted her, their smiles genuine and unforced. Conversation began casually, but it quickly gained momentum. They spoke of ordinary things at first, Boston's weather, the quirks of city life, but soon the dialogue turned deeper. They shared dreams and regrets, little stories of heartbreak and hope, and anecdotes from days that seemed far away but lingered in memory like old photographs. Clara found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in months. She laughed at jokes she didn't expect to, and she felt her shoulders relax, her worries slowly slipping away. The energy between them was easy, natural, like she had known them longer than the evening had allowed. Ethan, the charming one, leaned closer at one point, teasing her about a small comment she had made. It wasn't flirtation exactly, but it carried a warmth that made her smile without thinking about it. Michael, the quiet one, listened with such intent that Clara felt as if every word she spoke mattered. His focus was steady and calming, a grounding force she hadn't realized she craved. And David, the tall, contemplative man, shared a story about his childhood that made her heart ache with empathy. It was bittersweet, the kind of tale that made you remember your own past, the things you forgot, the things you longed for, and the moments that shaped who you were. Clara felt her chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. A mixture of nostalgia, admiration, and connection she didn't quite understand. Time passed unnoticed. The cafe staff started dimming the lights and clearing tables, signaling the night was ending, yet none of them seemed willing to leave. Clara glanced at her watch and realized hours had gone by like minutes. She had come in seeking solitude and found instead an unexpected connection. Three strangers who had somehow managed to make her feel alive again. Her heart was light, her thoughts buzzing with the kind of excitement she hadn't felt in years. There was laughter and a subtle intimacy in shared silence. A mutual understanding that tonight was something special. The men seemed equally reluctant to part ways. They exchanged glances, brief smiles that carried unspoken questions, unspoken suggestions. Without saying much, There was a collective sense that the evening wasn't finished, that the story they had started at the table could continue. Clara felt a thrill she couldn't quite explain, a flutter in her chest that mixed excitement with a hint of nervousness. It was unusual, this spontaneous feeling, and yet it felt perfectly natural. As if the universe had nudged her into a moment meant to be. David's calm voice broke the quiet, suggesting they take a walk. The others agreed immediately, and Clara found herself swept along, her cup of tea forgotten, replaced by anticipation. They stepped back into the crisp night air, and Boston seemed transformed. The usual sounds of traffic and chatter faded into a gentle hum, and the city lights sparkled like tiny stars grounded on the earth. Each step felt deliberate, yet free, and Clara felt an uncharacteristic sense of abandon. She wasn't thinking about her usual responsibilities, her deadlines, or the exhaustion that had weighed her down all day. She was here, fully present, carried by the rhythm of laughter, conversation, and a shared sense of wonder as they walked. Clara noticed how distinct each man's personality was, yet how seamlessly they complemented one another. Ethan kept the mood light, cracking jokes, teasing her gently, and keeping her laughter flowing. Michael shared thoughts that felt profound without being heavy, making her reflect on her own dreams and fears. David's quiet presence was reassuring, his occasional words measured and thoughtful, giving weight to the moments that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Clara felt a warmth spreading through her that wasn't just physical. It was emotional, a rare mix of comfort, admiration, and curiosity. At one point, they passed a small fountain in a quiet square. The water shimmered under the streetlights, and the men paused, letting the moments settle around them. Clara felt like she was suspended in a bubble of time, away from responsibilities, expectations, and the routine of life. Ethan made a playful comment that made her giggle. Michael offered a small, thoughtful observation about the changing seasons, and David simply smiled, as if content to be part of the moment without needing to shape it. Clara realized she hadn't felt this alive in a long time, her heart racing, her mind alert, her spirit tingling with possibility. The night deepened, and yet none of them felt urgency to end it. There was a gentle rhythm to their movements and conversation, a flow that made the world outside the square fade into insignificance. Clara found herself observing them closely, noticing small details, the way Ethan's eyes lit up when he laughed, Michael's slight nod when he agreed with something she said, David's calm gestures that conveyed thoughtfulness without words. She felt an emotional intimacy forming, subtle but undeniable. It wasn't about romance in the conventional sense, though hints of attraction lingered. It was about being seen, heard, and valued in a way she had almost forgotten existed. Eventually, they reached a small park near the river. The city skyline twinkled behind them, casting reflections across the calm water. They sat on a bench together, still talking, still laughing, still sharing stories that were becoming memories Clara knew she would treasure. The air was crisp, but not cold, filled with the quiet magic of a city at night. For Clara, the moment felt suspended, her heart full, her mind at ease, and her emotions raw in the best possible way. As the clock moved toward midnight, the reality that the night would soon end settled in. But there was no awkwardness, no sense of pressure. They all seemed to understand that this night was special precisely because it was fleeting. Clara felt a mix of satisfaction and longing, a delicate ache for something she couldn't yet define. Her laughter lingered in the air, her thoughts filled with their words, and she realized she had just experienced something extraordinary. The men finally rose to leave, and as they exchanged farewells, Clara felt a quiet warmth in her chest. There was a connection here she couldn't explain, a sense that paths had crossed for a reason, and a knowledge that tonight would remain vivid in her memory. She walked home slowly, savoring the cool breeze, the glow of streetlights, and the thrill of unexpected friendship and emotional intimacy. It wasn't the night she had planned, but it was the night she needed, a story in itself, a memory stitched into her heart forever. Clara opened the door to her apartment, the sounds of the city fading behind her. She leaned against the door, closing her eyes, and smiled. The night had given her laughter, conversation, reflection, and a rare sense of being truly seen. She realized life still held surprises, that human connection could appear when least expected, and that sometimes the most ordinary days could become extraordinary in a single evening. Her heart felt lighter than it had in months, and as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, she knew that this night, these three strangers, and the stories they had shared together had turned her evening into something unforgettable. And though she didn't yet know what tomorrow would bring, she felt a quiet certainty that this was only the beginning of a story worth remembering. The streets of Boston were quiet that night, the usual city noise replaced by the soft rhythm of footsteps and distant hums from street lamps. Clara walked with the three men she had met at the cafe, feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity. The night air was crisp, brushing against her cheeks, carrying with it the faint scent of fallen leaves and warm pastries from closed shops. The city looked different under the soft glow of the streetlights, almost magical. Each corner, each flicker of light seemed to whisper that something unexpected and memorable was unfolding. Clara's heart raced gently as she realized she had no idea where the night would lead, yet she felt completely alive. Ethan, the charming one, led the way with easy confidence. He made small jokes about the city, teasing about street signs and forgotten alleyways, and Clara couldn't stop laughing. The sound felt like a release, spilling from her in ways it hadn't in months. She found herself noticing the little details of the curve of his smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, and the subtle warmth in his voice. Every joke and comment was effortless, like the kind of humor that comes from understanding the world and being unafraid to share that understanding. She realized how refreshing it was to be around someone so light-hearted without feeling judged or rushed. Michael, the quiet one, walked a few steps behind, observing, listening, and occasionally adding thoughtful comments that made Clara pause and reflect. His presence was steady, grounding, like a calm river flowing through the chaos of the city. He asked questions about her life with genuine interest, not the kind of casual small talk that disappears as quickly as it begins. Each question made her feel seen, like her experiences mattered in ways she often doubted. There was a soft, magnetic energy to him, subtle but persistent, making her heart beat a little faster whenever their eyes met. Clara noticed how he laughed quietly at her reactions, how he nodded thoughtfully at her words, and how his slight smile seemed to convey understanding without needing to speak. David, the tall, contemplative man, walked beside her, speaking less often, but leaving every word he did say heavy with meaning. His stories, small and reflective, revealed glimpses of a life filled with thoughtfulness and quiet observation. Clara was drawn to the calm certainty he radiated, a sense that no matter what happened, he would remain grounded, present, and reliable. There was a gentle intensity in the way he looked at the world, as though he had learned to appreciate moments most people ignored. Clara found herself watching him as he pointed out the beauty in the simplest things: a glowing street lamp, a reflection in a puddle, the rhythm of leaves falling onto the pavement. They walked through cobblestone streets, turning corners where the city seemed to fade, leaving only them and the quiet night. There was no rush, no set destination, only the rhythm of shared footsteps and conversation. They wandered past the river where the water reflected the city lights in soft, shimmering patterns. Clara felt as though she had stepped into a painting. She noticed how different each man's presence was, yet how perfectly they fit together. Each interaction carried its own flavor: Ethan's humor, Michael's gentle insight, David's steady depth. She realized that she had experienced something rare: human connection in its purest, most unassuming form. They eventually came across a small, secluded park. The fountain in the center glistened under the city lights, and the sound of the water was soft but constant, a comforting rhythm to accompany their conversation. Clara sat down on a bench with them, feeling the cool metal under her palms, but also the warmth of the shared experience. Ethan leaned casually against the back of the bench, sharing funny stories from his college days, exaggerating certain moments in ways that made Clara laugh until she had tears in her eyes. Each anecdote was lighthearted, yet it revealed a side of him that was generous and open. Someone who could find joy in the simplest of memories. Michael stayed close, offering gentle commentary on her reflections about the stories, and encouraging her to talk about her own past, her dreams, and her quiet regrets. His voice was soft, comforting, and at times almost hypnotic in its steadiness. Clara realized she was speaking freely, sharing pieces of herself she rarely allowed others to see. His presence made her feel safe enough to do so, a rare gift in a world that often demanded masks and guarded expressions. She felt understood in a way that made her heart ache, softly a tender reminder of the importance of genuine connection. David, meanwhile, observed the group, occasionally interjecting with thoughtful comments or small stories from his life. His words were never overbearing. They were carefully chosen, like a brushstroke, that adds depth without overpowering the canvas. Clara admired the balance he brought, an almost unspoken understanding of when to speak and when to remain quiet, allowing moments to breathe. She found herself drawn to the tranquility he offered, a quiet counterpoint to Ethan's energy and Michael's thoughtful insight. It was as if the three men together created a perfect harmony, and she was unexpectedly woven into it. Time moved differently in that park. Minutes stretched like hours, yet none of them seemed concerned with clocks or schedules. Clara noticed how the night air made her senses sharper, the faint rustle of leaves, the distant city sounds, the soft laughter bouncing from one person to another. Every sound and sight was heightened by the intensity of shared experience. They talked about dreams and regrets, moments they cherished, and experiences that shaped who they were. Clara felt a rare clarity and understanding that human connection was as vital as air or water, capable of lifting spirits and opening hearts in ways that solitude never could. Ethan playfully nudged her shoulder at one point, making her giggle, and Clara realized she hadn't laughed like this in months. The laughter wasn't just amusement. It was release, catharsis, a soft unburdening of the weight she carried without even noticing. Michael smiled at her reaction, encouraging her to continue talking about herself, making her feel valued and appreciated. David, in his quiet way, nodded and offered small observations that grounded the conversation, turning lighthearted moments into reflections she would carry long after the night ended. The deeper the night went, the more Clara realized she was experiencing something extraordinary. It wasn't about romance in the traditional sense, though the subtle warmth and occasional glances carried hints of attraction. It was about being fully present with people who genuinely cared, who offered laughter, insight, and quiet understanding in equal measure. She felt alive, free, and unburdened, wrapped in a night that promised memory and meaning without expectation or demand. Eventually, they grew silent for a moment, simply observing the park and the river beyond. The water mirrored the city lights in gentle ripples, creating a serene backdrop that made the night feel almost unreal. Clara's heart swelled with gratitude for this unexpected turn of events. She had entered the evening alone, exhausted and seeking quiet, and had found instead connection, laughter, and the kind of intimacy that didn't need labels or declarations. It was rare, precious, and unforgettable. They continued to wander through the park, sharing quiet stories and reflections, laughing softly, and sometimes falling into comfortable silence. Clara felt the subtle shift in her self-alightness that had been missing, a sense that life could surprise her in beautiful ways, even when she least expected it. The men, though strangers at the start, had become companions on a journey that felt both whimsical and profound. Each moment felt alive, rich with emotion, and tinged with the kind of romance that doesn't need touch, only presence and understanding. When the time came to part ways, there was no awkwardness, no sense of something unfinished. They exchanged gentle smiles, soft farewells, and the quiet acknowledgement that this night was unique and unrepeatable. Clara felt a warmth in her chest as she watched them walk away, the streetlights casting long shadows behind them. She realized that the memory of this night would stay with her, etched in her heart as a story of connection, laughter, and the magic of human interaction. As Clara walked back to her apartment, she replayed the events in her mind, the humor, the insights, the subtle attraction, and, most importantly, the emotional depth she had felt with each of them. She understood that life could offer moments of unexpected wonder, that strangers could impact you in ways that friends or family sometimes couldn't, and that every encounter carried the potential for meaning. She felt a quiet thrill knowing she had experienced something rare, something that could be told as a story, not just of people meeting, but of hearts connecting. Clara reached her door, paused, and smiled softly. The city outside continued its quiet hum, but inside her there was a warmth she hadn't felt in months. She knew that the night had changed her, not in obvious ways, but in subtle, profound ones. She had found laughter, reflection, and connection, and it had all come from three men who had appeared unexpectedly, carrying energy and presence that turned an ordinary evening into something unforgettable. Before closing the door, she took a deep breath, letting the silence settle around her, and whispered to herself, "Tonight is a story I'll carry forever." The thrill of the night lingered like a soft, warm glow, and she knew that in her heart. The memory of laughter, quiet reflection, and connection would never fade.